Love is a serious mental disease. At the touch of love everyone becomes a poet. No one is a friend to his friend who does not love in return. Thinking, the talking of the soul with itself. The greatest wealth is to live content with little. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. A hero is born among 100, a wise man is found among 1,000, but an accomplished one might not be found even among 100,000 men. For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by yourself is of all things most shameful and vile. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. The measure of a man is what he does with power. Human behavior flows from three main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. There are three classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. Courage is knowing what not to fear. The empty vessel makes the loudest sound. Ignorance, the root and stem of all evil. Wonder is the feeling of the philosopher, and philosophy begins in wonder. To be sure I must, and therefore I may assume that your silence gives consent. The direction in which education starts a man will determine his future in life. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. No one knows whether death, which people fear to be the greatest evil, may not be the greatest good. He who is not a good servant will not be a good master. Poetry is nearer to vital truth than history. Philosophy is the highest music. Philosophy begins in wonder. Knowledge is true opinion. Courage is a kind of salvation. To suffer the penalty of too much haste, which is too little speed. Any man may easily do harm, but not every man can do good to another. Cunning is but the low mimic of wisdom. The most virtuous are those who content themselves with being virtuous without seeking to appear so. No evil can happen to a good man, either in life or after death. It is a common saying, and in everybody's mouth, that life is but a sojourn. There must always remain something that is antagonistic to good. The highest reach of injustice is to be deemed just when you are not. This and no other is the root from which a tyrant springs. When he first appears he is a protector. Truth is the beginning of every good to the gods, and of every good to man. The excessive increase of anything causes a reaction in the opposite direction. No man should bring children into the world who is unwilling to persevere to the end in their nature and education. Virtue is relative to the actions and ages of each of us in all that we do. Life must be lived as play. Knowledge becomes evil if the aim be not virtuous. When the mind is thinking it is talking to itself. Better a little which is well done, than a great deal imperfectly. We do not learn, and what we call learning is only a process of recollection. Knowledge which is acquired under compulsion obtains no hold on the mind. He who steals a little steals with the same wish as he who steals much, but with less power. When men speak ill of thee, live so as nobody may believe them. He who commits injustice is ever made more wretched than he who suffers it. He who is of calm and happy nature will hardly feel the pressure of age, but to him who is of an opposite disposition youth and age are equally a burden. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. Death is not the worst that can happen to men. Honesty is for the most part less profitable than dishonesty. Knowledge without justice ought to be called cunning rather than wisdom. Attention to health is life's greatest hindrance. Rhetoric is the art of ruling the minds of men. Necessity, the mother of invention. There are two things a person should never be angry at, what they can help, and what they cannot. To prefer evil to good is not in human nature, and when a man is compelled to choose one of two evils, no one will choose the greater when he might have the less. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty.